Tonight, the St. Lucia National Lottery defends the integrity of its $1 million Super 6 draw after the winning numbers were released ahead of the televised draw. Charges are laid in the killing of Pave resident Jade Rosary, and the CSA continues to rail against the granting of duty-free concessions to only some public servants. The details of these stories and more are coming up.
This is the Hot 7 Nightly News with Lovelace and Amy Joseph.
Good night. It is Wednesday, the 2nd of September 2020. Welcome to the Hot 7 TV Nightly News. I'm Lovely St. Amy Joseph. Thank you for joining us. The over $1 million Super 6 Lotto draw has stirred much controversy. A viral post on Facebook showing the winning numbers ahead of the Lotto draw has led to questions about the integrity of the process. The St. Lucia National Lottery has released a statement on the matter, explaining that an employee of the St. Lucia National Lottery who was part of the draw process for the multi-island Super 6 game was privy to privileged information on the results of the draw, and without permission and in violation of the policy regarding the draw process, released this information in advance of the airing of the official result at 9 p.m. The St. Lucia National Lottery is defending the integrity of its $1 million draw on Tuesday, the 1st of September, after the winning numbers were released online ahead of the televised draw. Lotto explains that an employee violated the procedures for the draw process by pre-releasing information relating to what was a pre-recorded draw. In a written statement issued on Wednesday, it explains that ticket sales for Super 6 was suspended at 7:45 p.m., meaning that tickets for that game could no longer be purchased after that time. The Super 6 game, which is a multi-jurisdictional game played within the Windward Islands of St. Lucia, Dominica, St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Grenada, is authorized to pre-record the Super 6 draw, which is aired throughout the islands during their normal evening draw broadcast on Tuesdays and Fridays. Lotto authorities say the violation on the part of the employee who pre-released the information took place after sales of Lotto tickets were suspended. The draw, it says, was conducted under strict levels of control and integrity, and vows that at no time was the process of the draw compromised, as all controls to ensure the secure closure of sales before the draw process began were followed. In addition, every draw process is conducted under the supervision of 2 auditors from BDO. The St. Lucia National Lottery has sought to reassure the public that the integrity of the St. Lucia National Draw is of paramount importance, and says once a full internal investigation is completed, the person or people with responsibility for this breach will be held accountable and requisite changes will be made to prevent a similar recurrence. Jade Rosary was shot dead in Pave at about 8:15 a.m. on Thursday, the 27th of August. He received a single fatal gunshot to his chest. His accused killer, Ricardo Stapleton, is now in police custody. Police Press Relations Officer Ann Joseph tells us more.
34-year-old Ricardo Scotty Stapleton of Pave has been charged for causing the death of Jade Rosary, also of Pave, on Thursday, the 27th of August 2020. He is currently remanded into police custody.
Pave residents who spoke to Hot 7 TV News in the aftermath of the shooting said Rosary was bleeding profusely as he made his way to his neighbor's house for assistance. First responders found Rosary with negative vitals when they arrived on the scene. He was the 31st homicide victim so far for the year 2020. The CSA continues to rail against the granting of duty-free concessions to essential and protective services public sector employees, not because they believe they are undeserving, but because the association says the concessions should be for all public servants. cabinet conclusion confirms that the beneficiaries of duty-free concessions are nurses and doctors providing full-time and contractual services, police officers of all ranks, including special reserve constables, and firefighters and firemen of all ranks. It is a decision that is not sitting well with the Civil Service Association, CSA. CSA's General Secretary, Claude Paul, explains that approximately 1 year ago, in September 2019, the CSA made representation to the Prime Minister seeking duty-free concessions for traveling officers who are required to purchase vehicles at duty-paid prices to undertake the work assigned to them on behalf of the state. Paul says the request on behalf of those officers was flatly refused by the Prime Minister, but today, in the midst of a pandemic, an offer of duty-free concessions is made to a select group of public officers.
We think in this case the concession should be expanded both in terms of its duration and scope, because 7 months is, I think, a short period of time, and the scope, broaden it to include persons whom we represent. And, if the premise of this was that it's intended to benefit persons who were in the forefront of the fight with COVID, a number of our members who are not benefiting from this concession are in this fight.
The CSA views the matter as a clear case of victimization against its members and an attempt to divide and undermine the strength of the Trade Union Federation, TUF, and the coalition of workers who stood strong during the last negotiations with government and more recently against government's effort to implement the blended payment modality of 50% bonds and 50% cash. The CSA argues that if the intention is to give back to those who play an integral role in the fight against COVID-19, then what about the contribution of customs officers, tax officers, treasury officials, health workers, including radiologists, lab techs, and service professionals who provided critical support through the health crisis?
And of course, you have people like the agricultural officers, the fisheries officers, people who work with NEMO, and a number of other public officers who supported the effort and were in the forefront. They took the risk. So why not include them? We believe that this should be looked at again by government and take a position which is more inclusive. But why would you want to discriminate against one set of workers at the expense of others?
The CSA further argues that this concession puts workers in more debt and that if the government really wanted to help, then it should have introduced a concessionary financing mechanism to further assist all public sector employees in purchasing the vehicles in order to avoid the exorbitant interest rates that are normally charged in such circumstances. The CSA has also recommended that future concessions by government should focus on more positive developmental initiatives, such as facilitating the purchase of affordable housing and land for public officers. Minibus associations are up in arms about the continued delay in receiving the full fuel rebate promised since 2018. They say this action demonstrates the lack of empathy toward the plight of bus operators who are struggling to make ends meet given COVID-19 protocols and high fuel prices. Genevieve Gonzague has more.
Minibus operators in St. Lucia have been expecting a fuel rebate from 2018. As of September, drivers were informed that they may be receiving half of the initially proposed amount, which was $1.1 million. Some drivers have expressed outrage and disbelief over this decision. PRO of the Rockhall Paving Minibus Association, Claudius Bubbles Sydney, says this decision makes no logical sense to him, as drivers have faced and continue to face a myriad of issues compounded with COVID-19 woes. Therefore, what they are offering is barely a solution.
The government had already promised that $1.1 million. That wasn't even the COVID money. That was just money for that was on 2018. But I see right now that when you give half is, I guess, is about $200 each driver will get. But it's not making any sense because you already promised it. Look, school opening on Monday, and then you still want people to carry 10 people on a van. When I carry 10 children, I travel in Rockhall, Marshall, Pavey. 10 children at $1, that's $10. I have no benefits in that, you know. But the government's supposed to sell it because you give everybody, you give the taxi drivers, you give whoever you give. The taxi drivers get $1,500, but I happy they get because they wasn't working. But at least, you know, you owe something. Look, you bring up the gas again. In the COVID time, it's supposed to give everybody a voucher so they could, when they go nighttime, fuel level, at least, you know, they have a rebate against them. But you give nothing. You give $500,000 and you expect that the association to distribute that to all associations.
PRO of the Sufra Minibus Association, Julian Snack, says not only is it disrespectful that drivers are being strung along in such a fashion, it is highly unfair.
It's very unfair after the COVID has gone through, and it's not nothing much that we have been receiving from the government or from any other parties. Initially, we have to be taking like 10 persons on a bus. That ain't even making sense. That's going back to Haiti because you're working. Whatever that you're making is not sufficient to keep to the demand that you have. You understand? So it's a cat and mouse story. It's a big fish eating the small fish all the time. That's just what it is.
He says he has taken a back seat as he is tired of advocating for drivers to be treated with respect and believes that the people in charge should be more understanding towards the plight of the average Joe.
You hardly ever see the person in charge at transport board walking around. They believe it's just a theory where you sit down at the desk and to be doing your job, but it's a practical work as well. They hardly ever go around because nothing is absolutely running in the way it's supposed to be. And that's just what it is. Everybody's just doing their own thing. So there is no protocol in everything. Not even, I'm telling you the truth. So I'm just relaxing right now. It really don't make sense. When you look at it over the years, you want to give people a half. You want me to, what you want somebody to fight? You want a revolution? What you want? Just be calm, people. That's what it is.
Meanwhile, a meeting with executives of minibus associations around the island and the NCOPT will be held later on during this week. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Genevieve Gonzague.
Meanwhile, the president of the National Council on Public Transportation, Godfrey Ferdinand, says although minibus operators are understandably dissatisfied with the decision by officials to disburse only half of the $1.1 million fuel rebate, the NCOPT has decided to accept it. Ferdinand says at this point, half a loaf is better than none.
The president of the National Council on Public Transportation, Godfrey Ferdinand, indicated that half of the proposed amount by the Ministry of Transportation for the 2018 fuel rebate was issued to the NCOPT on Friday. Ferdinand says, given past consultations with officials due to cash flow issues that were compounded as a result of COVID-19, the council is in a state of patience for the end of the financial quarter.
We received half of the rebate on Friday. I have posted in the President's chat room that we've received that money. I'm awaiting the response of the President's. I've seen a few so far, but we do have up to the 30th of September when the financial quarter ends, which is what was stated in an SI by the government, that before the end of this financial quarter, we would receive the rebate. It so happened that we've received half. So we still have a couple of days, or should I say weeks, before the 30th comes. And so we are waiting. After that, if it is not paid, then we can say something different.
Ferdinand is asking drivers to continue being patient, although they have been exuding great levels of patience over the past few months. He says it is unfortunate that drivers have been put in this position and understands all too well what the full rebate monies would do for NCOPT's members.
Members are running in serious debt problems as a result of this COVID, and we are hoping that that will turn around starting Monday with the opening of school.
He says he understands the frustrations of drivers as they too have responsibilities.
Obviously, it is frustrating for us receiving this half, because we would have well appreciated if we got it before the reopening of school so that members could at least use it for school purposes. It's a difficult time now, and we are hoping that members would understand, because we know that it is not easy on our side.
With the reopening of schools, drivers are hoping for a great turnaround in the number of people traversing the routes and are still holding out a candle for authorities to give the go-ahead for more passengers to be carried per trip. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Genevieve Gonzalez.
This is the Hot 7 TV Nightly News. Still to come, the government speaks on the future of horse racing in the south of the island. A call for people to seek out help as the country observes Suicide Awareness Month. And the Vice President of the Windward Islands Cricket Board, Julian Charles, lauds the leadership skills of T20 captain Darren Sammy. That and more after the break.